we're going to fill in the phase shift and vertical shift section of this table from the other day, and then we're going to start the new lesson. So on the graphs we're going to do today, they may or may not have a phase shift or vertical shift, but we are going to learn how to figure out what those are. So for the phase shift is a shift left or right, and so um, that is going to come from what's inside of the um, parentheses, and we actually use the C and we use a V. Right. So what we'll do is we're going to take C and divide it by V. That's the amount that you're going to shift. And if you divide that and it's a negative, there's a minus there, then you're going to shift to the right. And then we're going to shift to the left if positive. And then the vertical shift is going to come from this D value here. Right? And so D tells you the amount to shift, and you're going to shift up if positive, and you're going to shift down if negative. Okay, so now we're going to complete this box. So period and amplitude, so we talked about in the previous lesson, and then phase shift and vertical shift are the new things. All right, so our amplitude is going to come from the A part, or the very, that's the value of the number right after the equal sign. Okay, so I'm just going to go down the row and do the amplitudes. Okay. And then for the period, that's going to be 2 pi divided by the coefficient of x. So it's first 1, the coefficient of x, so it's 2 pi divided by 2, or just pi. Pi is the period. Right? For the second one, the x doesn't have a coefficient, so it's just going to be 2 pi. C, 2 pi divided by 3. Right? D, we're not going to divide by the negative. We're just going to do the opposite value. So it's, again, it's 2 pi divided by 2, or just pi. Right? And then this one actually does have a coefficient of 2. Now the coefficient is just on the outside. So it's 2 pi divided by 2 again, or just pi. And the last one, 2 pi divided by 4, or pi over 2 is the period. Okay. And let's talk about the phase shift. So the phase shift, you remember you take this is the C and divide it by the V. So it's pi over 2, and then you need to tell the direction. So a positive divided by positive is a positive, and if you dividing it by positive, it's to the left. Right? And then we go to B. It's this divided by 1, so it's going to be 3 pi over 2, and then because of that minus, it's going to go to the right. Okay. For C, I need to do pi over 2 divided by 3. A better way to divide a fraction by 3 is to multiply by the reciprocal. Okay. And then because that's positive, it's going to be to the left. This one I need to do negative divided by negative. Which is a positive, so it changes to a positive, so it's to the left. Alright, this E is confusing. So if I distributed that 2, I would end up doing, it would be 2x plus 6 pi. And then I would do 6 pi divided by 2, this made it 3 pi. So I could do that, or I could just use the 3 pi because they divided that 2 out already. And because it's positive to the left. Right, so make a note on this one. If something has been factored out, you use that something for the period, but then you don't have to use it for the phase shift. And then for F, F doesn't have a phase shift because there's no addition or subtraction inside the parentheses. And then for the vertical shift, there's only a vertical shift if there is addition or subtraction at the end of the problem. And so this one does have subtraction, so it's going to be 1 down, B is 9, C is 2 up, D is none, E is 4 down, and then F is 2 up. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of graphs that are going to have shifts, and that definitely makes it more difficult to do. Because before we just started at 0 and ended at the period. We cannot do that. These are not going to start at 0. So we have lots of things we have to do. So the first thing we'll do is what we already know how to do is to find the amplitude and find the period. Right? The phase shift. This one has one because I have subtraction inside the parentheses, so I could do pi over 4 divided by 1, or just pi over 4. And then because there's a minus there, it shifts to the right pi over 4. So if we take a function that normally starts at 0 and shifts it to the right pi over 4, then that gives you a starting point of pi over 4. Now, if it has shifted to the left, the starting point would be negative whatever. So shifting to the right gives a positive starting point. Shifting to the left gives a negative. Okay. Then, if I want to find the end of the period, I would do the starting plus the period. Okay. Now, this is not super easy to do. You have to take the starting point, and when we add fractions, we need a common denominator, and that common denominator is 4. So if I want to write 2 pi as something over 4, I would multiply the top and bottom of the fraction by 4, so it's going to be 8 pi over 4, or 9 pi. Okay, so I'm going to get started on my graph. So I'm not drawing the y-axis. The first thing I'm going to do is just draw the x-axis. And then in the very middle of it, I'm going to put my starting point. I'm not putting the y-axis in the middle. I'm putting the starting point in the middle. Right? And then at the far right, I'm going to put, oh, sorry, I messed up on this. It's now pi over 4. At the very right, I'm going to put the ending point. Okay, then I want to find halfway between those. And if you can't do that in your head, it is okay. That's not super easy to do in your head. So for the halfway, I'm going to add pi over 4 and 9 pi over 4, and then divide that by 2. All right, so that's going to be 10 pi over 4 10 pi over 4 is the same as 5 pi over 2. And dividing by 2 is the same as multiplying by 1/2. So that's going to be 5 pi over 4. Okay. And then I'll do another halfway between pi over 4 and 5 pi over 4. So that's 6 pi over 4 divided by 2, and then 3 pi over 2 times 1/2, or 3 pi over 4. Now at this point we can do that again, but you might be able to see the pattern because it looks like we have 1/4, 3/4, 5/4, some fourths, and then 9/4. So what logically falls in between there is 7/4. Okay. Now even though I don't have my y-axis yet, I don't have my amplitude labeled. I'm just going to go ahead and graph a period. I'm just kind of estimating. So a sine curve, remember we start at an x-intercept, we go up to a maximum, we go to an x-intercept, we go to a minimum, we go to an x-intercept. So that's one period. Now today we're doing 2 periods. So we have to find a period on the left side of this. Okay. So my second period, we're going to take our starting point, original period starting point, and this time, because I wanted, instead of doing a period to the right of the starting point, I'm going to do one to the left. So then I'm going to subtract my period. I'm going to go ahead and write it as 8 pi over 4. Well, maybe not. So you might not know where that came from. Okay, so that's pi over 4 minus 8 pi over 4. It's going to be negative 7 pi over 4. So what that means is this other period to the left is going to start over here at negative 7 pi over 4. Right. And then that period is going to end where this other one started. So that's pi over 4. Okay. And then we're going to start finding halfway points again. So I need to add negative 7 pi over 4 and pi over 4, and then divide by 2. Right, so that halfway is negative 3 pi over 4. And then you can continue that pattern. So in between there, negative 5 over 4. In between these two is negative 5 over 4. Alright, and then with our sine, start at 0, up to the max, 0, down to min, back to 0. This is really good. The only thing it doesn't have is the y-axis. So the y-axis wasn't one of our critical points, so I didn't need it yet, but I do need it. So the y-axis should fall in between negative pi over 4 and pi over 4. And then where I have my maximums, I'll label the 2, and where I have my minimums, I'll label the negative 2. Alright, so let's look at the next one. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and find our amplitude, our period, our phase shift, and then a shift to the left is going to make you have a negative start. start at negative pi over 2. Alright, so I am going to just go ahead and draw my x-axis, and in the middle, I'm going to label it negative pi over 2. Okay. Because that's the start of my first period. Alright, and then to find the end of it, I'm going to take that negative pi over 2. I'm going to add the period to it. Okay. Now I do need a common denominator, which is going to be 2. Alright, so positive pi over 2 is going to be the end point. Alright, what's halfway between those? That's 0. And where 0 is your y-axis. Right? And then halfway here should be pi over 4 and negative pi over 4. On your y-axis, we're going to go ahead and put our amplitudes 2 and negative 2. For my graph, this is a special one because we have this negative in the front. So this one's going to be a reflection over the x-axis. So instead of starting up at the amplitude, we're going to start down. This is going to be an upside down cosine. Let's go all the way. Okay. Then, if I want to find the start of my second period, I'll take my original period start. I'm going to subtract the period from it. So this is going to be negative 3 pi over 2. Alright. And then I need halfway in between those. So that means I'm going to add them together. And then divide by 2. So negative 4 pi over 2 divided by 2 is going to be negative 2 pi divided by 2 or negative pi. And I'll do similar things to find halfways. And this one I do need to find a common denominator. So it's negative 3 pi over 2 divided by 2 or multiplied by 1/2. Negative 3 pi over 4. And this will be negative 5 pi over 4. And we have now, we have 0, we have maximum, we have 0, and then we connect back. So that's 2 periods. Alright, so what I want you guys to do is this table and then 3 graphs out of the book.